The room was filled with applause, crystal glasses clinking under golden lights, when everything suddenly went quiet. At the center of the charity gala stood a confident millionaire CEO, known for his success, discipline, and carefully guarded private life. He had just stepped onto the stage to deliver a speech about hope and giving back. But before he could say a word, 3 small voices from the crowd stopped him cold. 3 identical children stepped forward, holding hands, their eyes fixed on him. With a calm certainty that sent a chill through the room, one of them spoke the words no one expected to hear. "You're our father." Gasps rippled through the guests as cameras flashed and whispers spread like wildfire. The powerful CEO, who never showed emotion, froze in disbelief. No one knew who the children belonged to, or how they had made it past security. Their faces carried a resemblance that was impossible to ignore. Awakening memories the CEO had buried long ago. A past he thought was gone forever suddenly stood right in front of him. As the crowd waited for his response, the children revealed they hadn't come for money or fame. They had come for the truth. And just as the CEO opened his mouth to speak, the story took a turn no one saw coming. The CEO felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on him as the room stayed silent. His heart pounded, not from fear of scandal, but from the shock of recognition he couldn't explain. Years ago, before the boardrooms and headlines, there had been a short chapter of his life he never spoke about, a time when he was just an ambitious man chasing dreams, unaware of the consequences his choices might leave behind. The triplets stood calmly, guided by a woman watching from the edge of the crowd. She didn't step forward, but her presence felt heavy, like an unspoken truth. Her face carried both strength and exhaustion, as if she had held on to this moment for a very long time. The CEO's mind raced, trying to place her, trying to understand how the past had found him in the most public way possible. Whispers filled the charity gala as guests speculated about hidden affairs, lost love, and long-buried secrets. The media cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion he tried to hide. Yet the children remained steady, not angry, not demanding, just waiting. Security moved closer, unsure whether to intervene. The CEO raised a hand, stopping them. He needed answers, but he also sensed that this was bigger than a simple confrontation. As the woman finally met his eyes, a silent question passed between them, and the truth hovered dangerously close. Still just out of reach, the CEO stepped down from the stage, his speech forgotten, and approached the woman with careful restraint. Up close, the memories became harder to ignore. Her voice, when she finally spoke, carried a familiarity that unsettled him. She explained she had never planned to come to the charity gala, but circumstances had forced her hand. The triplets had discovered his name on an old document, and once they connected it to the famous Millionaire CEO, they refused to let the question rest. From the children's point of view, this night was not about shock or drama. It was about identity. They wanted to know where they came from and why their mother had protected the truth for so long. Each of them studied his face, searching for something they could recognize as their own. The resemblance drew more attention from the crowd, making the situation impossible to dismiss as a misunderstanding. Behind the scenes, his legal team watched nervously, already thinking about reputation, headlines, and damage control. Years of carefully built success felt fragile in that moment. At the same time, the CEO felt an unexpected pull, a sense of responsibility he wasn't ready to admit. The charity guests whispered theories. The media waited for a statement, and the woman held her ground, refusing to explain everything in public. As the tension grew, one question echoed through the room and his mind alike. If they truly were his children, what would accepting that truth cost him? The atmosphere inside the charity gala shifted from celebration to quiet chaos. Guests leaned closer, phones discreetly raised, while the CEO's assistants whispered urgently behind him. He asked for a private room, hoping to move the conversation away from the public eye, but the children's presence had already sparked a storm that couldn't be contained. Every step he took felt heavier, as if his polished world was slowly cracking. Inside his mind, old memories resurfaced in fragments. A brief relationship, a sudden goodbye, unanswered calls he once ignored in the rush to build his empire. He had convinced himself that chapter was closed. Now it stood before him, breathing, watching, waiting. The woman remained calm, yet her silence carried years of struggle, sacrifice, and choices made alone. The triplets clutched each other's hands tighter as security tried to clear the area. One of them asked a simple question, barely above a whisper, but loud enough to cut through the noise. "Did you ever think about us?" The CEO felt his throat tighten, realizing this was no longer about wealth or image. Outside the room, reporters gathered, sensing a story that could shake the business world. Inside, the woman finally hinted at evidence she had kept hidden for years. As she reached into her bag, the CEO held his breath, knowing whatever came next could change every part of his life forever. The woman paused, her hand still inside the bag, then slowly pulled it back out without revealing anything. Instead, she looked past the CEO toward the glass doors, where another figure had just arrived. The sudden shift in her expression made his heart sink. Standing near the entrance was an older man, sharply dressed, someone the CEO instantly recognized. He was a powerful investor and a longtime member of the charity's board, a man who had helped shape the very empire the CEO now ran. Murmurs grew louder as the investor stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the triplets. He didn't look surprised. In fact, his calm reaction suggested he knew more than he should. The woman finally spoke, her voice steady but charged with emotion. She revealed that this man had known about the children for years and had quietly pressured her to stay silent, warning that exposing the truth could destroy careers and reputations. The CEO felt betrayal hit harder than shock. The conflict was no longer just personal. It had turned into a battle of power, secrets, and control. The children watched the exchange, sensing the tension but not fully understanding its weight. Outside, the media frenzy intensified, sensing cracks in a carefully built image. Inside the room, alliances began to shift. The woman reached into her bag once more, this time determined. Whatever she was about to reveal wouldn't just change one life. It threatened to bring down an entire legacy. The woman finally opened her bag and placed a small folder on the table. Inside were documents, photos, and a sealed DNA report she had kept untouched for years. The CEO's hands trembled as he read the results. There was no doubt left. The triplets were his children. The room fell silent as the truth settled in, heavier than any headline or scandal. He looked at the children, no longer as strangers, but as a living part of himself he never knew existed. He turned to the powerful investor, his voice steady but firm, and exposed the quiet threats and pressure that had kept the truth buried. Faced with the evidence and the growing media presence outside, the investor backed down, his influence suddenly powerless. The CEO made a choice that surprised everyone. He publicly acknowledged the children, accepting responsibility not as a billionaire, but as a father. The tension that once filled the room shifted into stunned disbelief. Just when it seemed the story had reached its end, the woman revealed one final truth. The charity gala wasn't chosen by chance. It was the same foundation the CEO had unknowingly funded years ago to support single mothers like her. His success had already been part of their lives long before this night. As reporters rushed to break the story, the CEO realized fate had been guiding him all along. What began as shock had turned into something far more powerful, and the future he thought he controlled was now completely rewritten. The days that followed changed everything, not just for the millionaire CEO, but for everyone connected to that unforgettable charity gala. The media storm eventually softened, replaced by a quieter conversation about responsibility, honesty, and second chances. The CEO stepped away from the spotlight for a while, choosing to spend time learning about the three children who now carried his name in his history, the triplets. Once nervous and unsure, slowly relaxed as they saw consistency in his actions. He didn't try to buy their trust with wealth or status. Instead, he showed up, listened, and allowed space for emotions that had been held back for years. The woman, no longer carrying the weight of silence alone, found relief in finally being heard. Her strength had brought them to this moment, and it was finally acknowledged. The powerful investor quietly resigned from the board, his influence fading without the drama he once controlled. The charity foundation continued its work, now with greater transparency and purpose. For the CEO, success took on a new meaning. Beyond business and headlines, he learned that truth has a way of finding its voice, no matter how long it waits. In the end, the story wasn't about scandal or power. It was about family, accountability, and the unexpected paths life takes when courage finally meets the truth.